Okay guys, this is your first video on macroeconomics. This standard pretty much starts with talking about how the government and the economy interact. So if you see on the first page here, the title of this, and I know it's kind of cut off, says the government and the economy. This is Unit 3. We will be spending about 3 weeks on this unit. Okay, hopefully it should go pretty quick, and hopefully these videos will help out. The first thing we're going to talk about is types of economies. Your standard says the student will compare and contrast different economic systems and explain how they answer the 3 basic economic questions of what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. So that's really what we're going to focus on today, are the major types of economies. And we're only going to talk about 3. Okay, first thing, the basic questions any economy has to answer. Okay, that is what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. What to produce, basically that means is, in an economy, what are you going to produce? What are you going to make? Are you going to be an agricultural economy? Are you going to produce solely foodstuffs? Are you going to be a manufacturing economy where you're going to focus on things like making steel, building cars, that sort of thing? All these questions have to be answered. The second part of that, how to produce. How are we going to do it? Are we going to have big factories where we have multiple people working for us, or are we going to have small factories where it's just maybe one person or 2 people working, or are we just going to have sole proprietorships? And lastly, for whom to produce. Basically, who are you making your things for? Are you going to make it to sell? Are you going to make it just for your own consumption? We're going to talk later about all these types of things. Okay, the first type of economy we're going to talk about is called a command economy. Okay, command economy is usually a central government or a central authority, usually the government, that makes most of the what, how, and for whom decisions. Remember that what, how, and for whom, or what to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce. People have little, if any, influence over how the basic economic questions are answered. Some examples of these are Cuba, obviously, which is still a command economy, North Korea, and then the best example is what used to be the former Soviet Union, okay, or what is now Russia. One thing you'll notice about all 3 of these countries are they have in common they're communist countries. Okay, command economies are communist economies. Basically means you're looking out for the good of everyone. Okay. On your task sheet this week, you're going to do a little reading on Karl Marx and Adam Smith. Now, Karl Marx is the father of communism. Okay, he came up with this idea of helping everyone. Now, it really took off in the Soviet Union after the Russian Revolution. So all the economic questions are answered by a central authority, usually the government. There are some advantages to a command economy. You've probably heard people say communism is great on paper. Okay, the big advantage are it can change direction drastically in a relatively short amount of time. Basically, it can go from being an agricultural to a manufacturing economy very quickly. It doesn't take a long time for it to change because all those decisions are being made by the government. So if they decide you're going to produce, if you're going to go from producing corn to producing cars, you have to do it. So it can change quickly. Also, many health and public services are available to everyone at little or no cost, regardless of your income. So no matter how much money you make, you get these services. And it's provided by the government, paid for by the government. But one big problem is not really probably great health services or public services because the government's providing it. It's going to be very minimal. Okay. So, since we looked at the advantages, let's look at the disadvantages. Okay, it does not meet the wants and needs of consumers. Basically, what that means is if you want to produce something, or you feel like you really want to make this, you don't necessarily get to do it because you are limited by the government. The government tells you what you're going to produce. It lacks effective incentives to get people to work. Basically, if you have no room for growth, or you're going to be doing the same job the rest of your life, you're not going to really have an incentive to do better. There's no really positive for doing better. Requires a large bureaucracy, which consumes resources. Bureaucracy is government, so it takes a lot of government agencies to get that going and run it on a day-to-day basis. Has little flexibility to deal with small day-to-day changes. So if little things need to change, it doesn't really work well. It does work well for big changes, but not well for little ones. And then lastly, new and different ideas are discouraged. No room for individuality. So basically, you kind of just have to fall into what the government says. All right, the second type is a market economy. The market economy, people and firms act in their own best interest to answer what, how, and for whom. Remember those 3 big questions. People's decisions act as votes when consumers buy a product When consumers buy a product, they're technically voting for that product to be produced. So, in a market economy, there is no government intervention at all. Remember that. Zero government intervention. Basically, the economy kind of acts on its own. People decide what gets produced, how it's going to be produced, and for whom it's going to be produced. The U.S. has somewhat of a market economy. Okay, now we do know the government of the U.S. does intervene when needed or when necessary. So remember, the U.S. doesn't have a pure market. Now, pure market means no government intervention whatsoever. Okay, so right here in just a second, you'll see popping up now the advantages of a market economy. One, it can adjust to change gradually, which means if things need to change, it will change, but it does so slowly. It doesn't do it rapidly like a command economy, but it can do so slowly. Second, there's individual freedom for everyone. You're free to produce whatever you want, consume whatever you want, as long as it's legal. We've talked about that. But I guess in theory, in a pure market, there would be nothing that would be illegal to produce. Lack of government interference, we've already talked about. Government makes no decisions about the economy. Decentralized decision making, which means it's not like in a command economy you have a bureaucracy that makes all decisions versus central. In a market economy you don't have that. It's decentralized. Incredible variety of goods and services. People kind of make what they want, so you see a lot of different stuff being produced. And then last, high degree of consumer satisfaction. People are happy in a market economy because they can buy whatever they want. Now, does that mean you're happy all the time? No. Okay, you only are happy when you can consume and buy what you want. The disadvantages of a market economy. Rewards only productive resources. Does not provide for people who are too young, too old, or too sick to work. Okay, there's things like welfare, Social Security, all those would not exist in a market economy because the government doesn't intervene at all. They don't take care of people who are too young, too old, too sick to work. So you have to work. If you want to make money, you have to work. Workers and businesses face uncertainty as a result of competition and change. You're not guaranteed a job. Okay, if the market fails and your business goes out of business, you're out of business, you don't have a job. There's no guarantee you're going to keep making money. It does not produce enough public goods such as defense, universal education, or health care. These are all in the market. They're not provided. You have to go out and get them yourself. Okay, and if you don't have money to get them, well, you just can't get them then. And then lastly, it must guard against market failures, which means the market will collapse if you don't take care of it. Okay, the last is called a mixed market economy. Now it's a combination of both a market and a command economy. Okay, people can carry out economic decisions and the government intervenes when needed. Basically, this is what the U.S. has. People get to decide, what gets produced, how it's going to be produced, and if absolutely necessary, the government will intervene. Okay, these are things like if you look at Roosevelt when he started Social Security. Okay, that was an absolute necessity, so he started it. That kind of shows how the U.S. is a mixed market. Here in just a second, there's going to pop up a graph that will help you by looking at the types of economies and basically how they answer the questions, the how to produce, what to produce, for whom to produce. I would look heavily at this graph. One of your tasks this week is you're going to be doing a graphic organizer that kind of goes along with this. So I would definitely get this down in my notes. Remember, this week for this unit or section, you don't really have to you're not going to turn in your notes on this, okay? But you will still be required to understand all this information. Okay, remember, we're not going to do these notes in class. We're doing them outside of class. You're watching on YouTube, on the computer, whatever. Remember, if you don't have access, we will do a little bit in class, but we're not going to go over it as a class. So you need to do that on your own. And in class, we're going to be working on work, doing our class work. That way we don't have to do work outside of the classroom. If you have any questions about stuff, we'll work on it in class, okay? Remember, check my website often. It'll have updates, have all your sheets. Make sure you get these notes, get them down, and we will be moving on. Your next unit will go further into how the governments interact with the economy.